In the Spectrum diet, Dr. Dean Ornish suggests that it's possible to turn back the cellular clock and actually reverse the onset of disease by following a nutrient-dense, high-quality, and plant-based diet, by exercising, practicing stress management such as yoga and meditation, and connecting to a community and support group. What Dr. Ornish research has proved over the course of his career is that focusing on a diet and lifestyle actually works better than medication or surgery to prevent and reverse the onset of disease, specifically heart disease. In the Spectrum diet, Dr. Ornish tells us why this type of diet and lifestyle works and how to personalize your diet and lifestyle to match your needs and your genes. See, the key to reversing your genes is changing your genes. What that means is that literally everything you do has the potential to impact how your genes are expressed. Health is the result of genes expressing themselves well, and disease is the result of poorly expressed genes. The way food talks to your genes and controls your health is called nutrigenomics, and basically means that the quality of the food that you consume and choose to eat every day is possibly the most important thing you do every day to control your genes. According to Dr. Ornish, which genes are turned on and off is really determined by whether you eat whole, real food or processed, high-sugar, high-fat food, how nutrient-dense your foods are, whether your diet helps balance blood sugar or cause instability in blood sugar, how you think every day in terms of thinking positive or negative, in that negative thoughts can lead to a disease state, and living in love and support can lead to more anti-aging, disease-reversing genes. How you manage stress and how you exercise. In the Spectrum diet, Dr. Ornish explains how and why the choices we make influence our health through our genes. It's not about going on a diet or exercise program because ultimately we'll end up coming off. Rather, tuning into what our ancestors have been doing for 100,000 years and eating a whole foods diet. Dr. Ornish explains how to customize your diet and lifestyle by eating primarily a plant-based, nutrient-dense diet coupled with daily exercise, stress management like meditation and breathing exercises, as well as the importance of love and community in giving us the drive to actually want to be healthy, because it's a choice that we have to make every day throughout the day. Dr. Ornish explains that it's not so much about eating good or bad foods, but rather identifying with the spectrum of choices based on your individualized risk factors and current eating habits. A 65-year-old, for example, a 65-year-old male with high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes with poor eating habits is likely going to start from a very different position on the spectrum than a young athlete that already subscribes to a whole foods diet. Specifically regarding the diet, Dr. Ornish preaches the inclusion of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and soy products in their natural, unrefined forms, largely what could be considered a vegetarian and low-fat diet. Ornish explains that this type of diet ensures foods naturally high in fiber that will fill you up without eating too much and therefore naturally controlling caloric intake to an extent. Additionally, he recommends cutting intake of trans fats and commercially prepared foods like cookies, cakes, and snack foods, but also says to stay clear of saturated fats found in meat and dairy products, as well as palm and coconut oil, which is the predominant fat found in most people's diet. So there's plenty of room for improvement in terms of reducing saturated fat intake. Ornish uses the spectrum of grouping of foods for from the most beneficial or health-giving in terms of the foods at the top end of the spectrum have the most good stuff and the least bad stuff, to the least beneficial foods at the lowest end of the spectrum, which allows people room for improvement in regards to their readiness for change. The factors included in the spectrum include how much and what types of fat, carbs, and protein, as well as the amounts of sugar and salt, nutrient density of the food, the calories, the fiber, the glycemic index and glycemic load, the inflammatory properties of the foods, as well as the antioxidant effects and degree of refinement, in addition to the number and amount of beneficial substances like phytochemicals, bioflavonoids, carotenoids, and on and on. For example, in the spectrum, Group 1 foods are predominantly fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, soy products, non-fat dairy products, and egg whites in their natural forms, as well as some good fats from omega-3 fatty acids. Whereas Group 5 foods would be foods higher in both trans and saturated fats, including animal protein, specifically red meat, full-fat dairy like butter, as well as hydrogenated fats like margarine, mayonnaise, donuts, etc. With the overarching idea being that you don't need to adopt all of the group 1 foods at once, but simply making a switch from group 5 to group 4 can be a step in the right direction. In regards to a stress management system, Ornish believes that a major factor in controlling disease isn't necessarily the amount of stress we're under, rather how we react to our everyday stressors regarding our job, our environment, our family situation, and how we react to those in a more constructive way. Seeing as we're all under stress, by changing our perception of stress can be the facilitating step in how our genes are affected, and ultimately minimizing the telomere damage, which is responsible for shortening lifespan and decreasing health outcomes. As with the nutrition and exercise, you have a spectrum of choices to manage our stress, all of which seem to have a dose-response relationship, meaning the more you practice them, the better you become and the more effective they will be, including implementing breath work, mindfulness exercises, yoga, physical exercise, enhancing social support, and practicing forgiveness, altruism, compassion, and service. All of these which Ornish manages to explain how powerful they can be through seemingly complex scientific reference, but ends up making so much sense on a practical level. Truly, the sections on stress management and guided meditation are possibly one of the more beneficial aspects of any diet-related book. Ornish continues to discuss the physiological benefits of exercise and its direct effect on weight loss, sleeping better, feeling happier, enjoying sex more, improving digestion and elimination, and reducing cholesterol and blood pressure, and on, all with seemingly small amounts of physical activity every day, and gives logical progressions based on the American College of Sports Medicine guidelines. The book has sections geared towards specific conditions like lowering cholesterol, weight loss, lowering blood pressure, preventing and reversing type 2 diabetes, as well as cardiovascular disease and prostate and breast cancer, all including specific nutrition, lifestyle, supplementation, and exercise guidelines, but also backed up by scientific literature. This alone creates a very compelling resource for those with the aforementioned health risks looking for changing and needing specific and scientifically backed guidelines. As if that's not enough, the book culminates in a full section from a professional chef, including numerous recipes utilizing the nutrient-dense foods outlined in Ornish's Spectrum Diet. I personally found the Spectrum Diet to be an extremely comprehensive resource focusing far more on creating positive change through lifestyle than nutrition alone. In fact, I would personally recommend the book for everything but the nutrition guide, seeing as the majority of the book encompassed the benefits of behavioral change, stress management, exercise, and why all of these from a scientific standpoint are so powerful in our daily lives. While I am not very familiar with Dr. Ornish's work, I think he has already spent ample time on his largely vegetarian and lower fat approach to eating. As with any diet guru, his previous work has taken its fair share of criticism. Along the same vein, a couple of areas I found the need for some clarification, at least for me, are his views on the harmful effects of animal protein and saturated fat consumption on both the environment and in the human diet, for which I don't believe his claims are substantiated. Ornish says that eating lower on the food chain is a more efficient way to produce protein. As Earth's population continues to rise and resources decline, eating foods on the healthier end of the spectrum, like his plant-based proteins or vegetarian-based diet, frees up more resources to help feed others, which I don't exactly have a hard time, which I have a hard time relating to. Additionally, in his spectrum of food choices, his classification of animal proteins and hydrogenated food products in the same category makes little sense to me given the diversity of human nutrition around the globe. As an example, I find it hard to believe that drinking or eating full-fat milk or cheese could be equally detrimental as various trans-fat-laden products like donuts or margarine. Yet, given the overarching theme of simply choosing healthier foods, I don't want to get into too much of the minutiae. I believe that this book could probably benefit 99% of the U.S. population, even with the general guidelines, even with the nutrition guidelines, as I personally feel that someone would be hard-pressed to be eating too much real food. Ultimately, I think the general guidelines in the book are the most salient, like choosing foods that are nutrient dense, choosing quality over quantity, eating less salt, drinking more tea, exercising more, stressing less, staying positive, and surrounding yourself with love and support. Kudos to Dr. Ornish for creating a resource that could truly be used as a get well manual in any kind of healthcare setting.